I'm too old to look too far into the future. I'm more concerned with the present. And one of the things that concerns me about all this talk of pipelines is the number of accidents that they have had in the last 20 years. And all of them affect humans. The most drastic, of course, was our train derailment in Quebec, which should, I think, lead to some regulation. But my question to you gentlemen is, if you're going to take pipelines from the west to the east, how are you going to guarantee the safety of all of the waterways that have to be crossed and the people in all of the settled areas of Canada, like that little place called Toronto, which I understand the pipeline runs right through? Are they going to go along with you running a pipeline carrying bitumen to the east coast through the heart of downtown Toronto? How do you guarantee the safety of these populations?
That's an excellent question, and there are no guarantees. There's lots of things that can be done when you're building these pipelines and installing them, but there's no guarantees. Sooner or later, there's going to be a spill, there's going to be a rupture. It's going to happen. There's nothing in this world that's perfect. And we have to look at a balance of economic benefits and risks and maximize the benefits and minimize the risks. I'd like to speak a little bit about Lac-Mégantic and what happened there. Because of the increasing production, not just from Alberta, but in the United States, especially North Dakota with the Bakken, there, over a period of 1 or 2 years, there's been many hundreds of thousands of barrels a day of oil that has started to become shipped by rail. That Bakken crude has got particular characteristics. It's very light. You could characterize that crude as a very gassy natural gasoline. For the most part, the rail cars that are used to transport products like that aren't even safe for non-pressure service. And there have been some voluntary industry guidelines in the last year or two to upgrade the rail cars by putting puncture-resistant shields on the front and the back, by improving the protection on the valves and everything else. But what's been overlooked now is the fact that I think what's happened is that these rail cars become pressured up because there's so much gas in that very light crude. And to describe those rail cars at Lac-Mégantic as propane-powered gasoline bombs wouldn't be far off the truth. And they were just waiting for some accident like that to set them off. And I think that explains the violence and the extensive destruction that happened at Lac-Mégantic. But what's happened is this has taken off so rapidly and in such a large scale that the regulations just haven't kept up. I mean, there's 300,000 rail cars in North America, 310,000 that are used to transport crude oil and liquid products like that. And most of them aren't built to what are considered to be even adequate standards for carrying a fluid that isn't pressured up. We have special cars that transport pressurized LPG gas, like pure propane and butane and methane. But as far as liquids go, those rail cars aren't set up. And again, it's a lack of moving quickly enough on regulations that I think are responsible for accidents like Lac-Mégantic. What you have to realize here is that I saw one forecast from a company called RBN in the States, and they're saying that by 2015, we're going to have rail terminals in Alberta that will handle 800,000 barrels a day of crude to send it to market. And that's because we don't have the pipelines in place to take the increases in production from the bitumen sands that we're anticipating over the next few years. And so as far as guarantees go, I mean, there's no guarantees that your car won't break down and you have a car accident, or the train won't derail, or a bus will hit a train, or an airplane will come down. But definitely in the case of rail cars, we need to do better. In the case of pipelines, There's definitely room for improvement. I would hope that TransCanada, when they build that pipeline, that they make sure they've got new heavy wall pipe going across all critical stream crossings. They've got to make sure they've got automatic shutdown valves on either side of those crossings. They've got to make sure that they hydro test every foot of that pipe to make sure that there's no pinhole leaks in the pipe. They've got to make sure that their control room operators have got the best training available in the industry. That Kalamazoo, Michigan spill by Enbridge, you know, when people use the terms Keystone Cops, those people in the control room didn't know what they were doing. And had actually, even if they did know, they probably weren't given the power to shut valves down. You know, you shut down a valve and your boss comes to you and asks, what the hell are you doing? You know, you're fired, you know, you can't do that. So there's a lot of improvements in training that have to happen to make the pipeline safe. Yeah, there's a ways to go. There's definitely room for a lot of improvement.
I completely concur, and we're in favor of a west-east pipeline for the reasons I spelled out at the beginning of this talk. But the idea that we would approve or support Enbridge Line 9, given Enbridge's track record and given the absence of tough regulations around pipelines, it's two different issues. We can't support a pipeline application when it's not subject to public consultations, not subject to a proper environmental assessment, and in the context and the framework now where the number of pipeline spills is increasing at a regular rate because of the fact that this government, the federal government, has simply been irresponsible. So what we need to do is put in best practices, ensure that we're talking about the most rigorous safety standards in the world. That allows the public then to be consulted with some assurance that the likelihood of a spill is going to be a little as opposed to a lot. And that's the current regime that we're living under. So all of the issues that Mike just spoke about, the shutdown valves, hydro testing, training, those are all things that the federal government should be requiring. And in a completely appalling abdication of responsibility, what they're doing is pushing the companies to do whatever the hell they want. That's simply not acceptable for Canadians. And that's why I think this issue is going to play larger and larger as we wind down to 2015.
Thank you. I agree with both Mike and Peter. What the problem we're seeing here in Alberta is the pipeline infrastructure is so old and has been so ignored that I don't know if we can ever rejuvenate that infrastructure. I think probably, but it's going to take a lot of effort. So, lesson learned. You know, if we're going to build pipelines and we're building for the future, then we build resilient pipelines that have built-in protection. You know, tankers now carrying oil, they have to have double hull. So there's nothing that says we can't have a double hull pipeline, so that if there is a leak in the pipeline, that it's captured by a secondary system, so that it doesn't come to the surface. Suncor has announced that it's in favor of the reversal of Line 9, and my caution to them was, if you don't want to be tarred any more than you're tarred as a company, an oil company, in the oil sense, then break away from Enbridge. Don't associate yourself with Enbridge, because Enbridge has completely ignored any responsibility for pipelines. They're just there to make the dollar, and you know, if there's a leak, there's a leak. We don't care. You know, they're already proven it with that reversal. They completely ignored the fact that that pipeline is not ready to take anything, and that they should be investing a lot of money just in the time that we're talking about reversing it. Enbridge should be out there showing that they are a responsible company and that they're doing the right things, and their pumping stations are equipped with the secondary power that they need, so on and so forth. But they're just ignoring that. They're just thinking, I guess they gave enough to the federal Tories that they don't think they're licensing anything. But there is ways of making it better. It's like Mike has said, you know, if we don't take care of our cars, they fall apart. you know, proper maintenance on any system is what keeps it going. So that's what we need, a good maintenance system.
Enbridge, I don't have one good thing to say about Enbridge. They want to use tankers of 2 million barrels capacity to go up Douglas Channel in the dark, the fog, storms. Their dilbit spill in Michigan was 20,000 barrels, and it's going to, right now, the estimate is over $1 billion to clean that up, because the EPA has found submerged oil in the bottom of the river channel. They've got to basically go in and dredge out the whole channel and rebuild the whole channel. That's the only way they're going to get all the oil out. They want to use tankers that could potentially release a spill that's 100 times bigger than that. I don't understand how anybody can afford to pay to clean up a spill that approaches that kind of magnitude on BC's west coast. I think the Northern Gateway proposal is just an abomination, and I have a very low opinion of Enbridge for continuing to insist on that. I think a lot of the increase in capacity for the Kinder Morgan pipeline that's being proposed, I think a lot of that came from people who gave up on Enbridge and Northern Gateway, and they don't think it's ever going to happen. So they've nominated volumes and increased the size of the Kinder Morgan expansion that they want to do, which I think is a little better environmentally. But Enbridge, boy, they really are a Keystone Clown type of operation, I think.